Right, so let's talk about this South Africa and Nigeria meeting today. They resolved to work together to address challenges facing the two countries. The African giants met in Pretoria on the first day of Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari's three-day state visit. Now, while trade relations were the focus, attacks on foreign nationals living in South Africa and Nigerian reprisals also received some attention. SABC senior political reporter Mzwandile Mbeje joins us now. So, Mzwandile, there was no way that this hot potato would not be part of the meeting, not front and center, but certainly something worth talking about.
Well, so you'd remember that before this state visit, there's been a lot of going up and down. Remember the issue of attacks when they happened. President Buhari sent his special envoy here, and then, of course, President Ramaphosa later on sending his own envoys, because this is quite important, because the manner in which the Nigerian government and perhaps people of Nigeria reacted to the attacks. So this issue was always going to be elevated. I mean, one of the first responses was from the Nigerian foreign minister, who basically said, well, South Africa can't do this again because these things had happened before. So it was always going to be in focus, and the leaders did speak about it thoroughly. Yes, the issue was about strengthening trade and relations and stuff like that, but this issue, you could see that it bothered everyone. I mean, every occasion where our president spoke, I mean, he expressed his regret, and that this thing should never happen again.
And, of course, Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari is saying that they do accept South Africa's apology. Were there any concrete steps that were spoken of in terms of how to ensure that the two countries, and it's beyond the two countries, the continent itself does not find itself in this position again?
I think what they have both realized is that as much as government, they do have those cordial relations, I think they've realized that in terms of people-to-people contact, they're still lacking there. So they have resolved then to make sure that they promote social cohesion so that people really understand each other. And of course, the big issue at the BSO, which is South Africans that are complaining about, would be people doing illegal trade or people being here illegally. I think the president made it clear to say whoever is here or whoever is in Nigeria must simply abide by the laws of that country. Whether you're doing business or you're living in that country, anything outside of that must be dealt with by law. So I think they are agreed. And then they said they will set up early warning systems. So, you know, there are processes underway right now. So I guess in the coming days or weeks, they'll explain that.
Okay, so yeah, we don't know what that would entail.
At this stage, remember, there's a lot of processes that are underway. President Ramaphosa appointed two former presidents of Tanzania and Mozambique to really come and look deeply into this issue. And I think once all those processes are concluded, so they'll be able to give us a clear picture.
As you're saying that the cultural exchange aspect is what has been singled out as lacking, and interestingly enough, just looking at the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, it's for the easy exchange of products, and often these products are also culturally linked. So let's talk about that trade. What are they looking to do? Help us assimilate within each other's cultures, practices and traditions.
I think one of the things that they have stressed was that Nigerian companies are not really in South Africa. There's not a lot of them. It's only the small and medium businesses that are doing business here. Whereas in South Africa's case, the businesses that are operating in Nigeria is like big businesses. So they've basically said even Nigerian companies must be encouraged to come and invest here. And of course, South Africa committing to say they are committed to easing the doing of business in the country, because one of the things that Nigerians complain about is that to do business in South Africa is a bit difficult. So once they are able to look into those issues really, and I'm sure it will go some way towards alleviating some of the difficulties that we are seeing.
And obviously a very difficult conversation for President Cyril Ramaphosa to be having now in the lead up to South Africa taking over the AU chairmanship, because he really has his work cut out for him in saying when South Africa preaches African unity, it really is sincere about it.
Oh yes, and I think he stressed it over and over again in his speech, even in his question and answer, to say this country is committed to the ideals of African unity. And it's very important, particularly because as South Africa, we're going to be chairing this continent, and this continent which perhaps others perceive as us fighting with. So it will be very important for the president really to lead those efforts which demonstrate practically that South Africa actually is not xenophobic. It's some of the socio-economic conditions and some of the illegalities that I think need to be rooted out. In fact, President Buhari was very clear to say, if you go to a particular country, you must live by the rules of that country. If you go outside of them, you must be dealt with. And I think everyone will have to play their part here.
Well, thank you very much, Mzwandile. SABC senior political reporter Mzwandile Mbeje.